This is the Death Row and Executions channel. My name is Paco Rivera, and I do presentations on an execution happening soon, including a story on what got the death row inmate sentenced to death. You can also follow me on Facebook for updates and more death row news. There will be a link to my Facebook in the description below. Also, check out my other channel here on YouTube called The Maximum Sentence, where I cover recent crimes and convictions. There will also be a link for that. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are going way back with this next case. The crime I'm going to talk about today happened on July 31st, 1976. That is 50 years ago. I myself was a young boy when that crime happened, and I'm pretty old now. My memories of that year was all the events circulating around it being the bicentennial of this country when the United States became 200 years old. I also remember going to the movies to see the first Rocky movie that year. Anyway, this happened so long ago that it was very difficult to get a lot of details of this case, and I wasn't even able to find a picture of the 13-year-old victim. I even thought about contacting the man who was the lead homicide detective in this case, Daniel Nazarchuk, thinking maybe he's retired now and he's willing to talk about it. And I found out that he passed away in 2016, 10 years ago, at the age of 83. So he would have been 93 this year. What we know about this case is that some years earlier, James Ernest Hitchcock had been charged with burglary in the state of Arkansas, where he grew up, and he served some time in prison for that before being released on parole. He later relocated to Winter Garden, Florida, and he was still on parole by 1976. In Winter Garden, James Ernest Hitchcock began working with an older brother named James Harold Hitchcock at a service station, and they were also picking fruit around the Winter Garden area of Florida in Orange County. Two brothers with the same first name. A bit unusual, but I guess it happens. But at some point during that year of 1976, James Hitchcock became ill at just 20 years old. And because of this illness, he was unable to continue working and he became unemployed. This is James Hitchcock now at the age of 70, about to be executed. So he apparently was able to last another 50 years after that illness. Anyway, back to 1976. With no money and no way to pay the rent, James Hitchcock was allowed to move in with another brother, Richard Hitchcock, in Winter Garden. Richard lived with his wife, who had two daughters from a previous relationship. One girl's name was Cynthia Ann Driggers, who was born in 1962 and was fondly known as Cindy. So she was 13 years old. The other daughter, who was a year younger than Cindy, Deborah Lynn Driggers, who is now in her 60s and goes by the name Lynn Cobb, had testified at all of Hitchcock's hearings about how he was abusive. She stated how Hitchcock had made inappropriate advances towards her when she was 12 years old. Just to jump ahead for a moment, at one of those resentencing hearings for James Hitchcock, following a successful appeal by his defense lawyers, James Hitchcock's sister had stated that her brother is innocent. That had apparently infuriated the victim's mother, the mother of a girl who was brutally violated and killed by Hitchcock, resulting in a physical altercation that took place in the hall outside the courtroom that had to be broken up by county deputies. Back to what we know about the case. James Hitchcock had been living with his brother and his brother's family for just 3 weeks, when on a Friday night, July 30th, 1976, Hitchcock and the family were gathered watching television. However, it was about 11 o'clock that night that Hitchcock left the house and spent the next few hours smoking marijuana and drinking beer with some friends in Winter Garden. He returned to the house about 2:30 in the morning, now officially Saturday, July 31st. And he didn't have a key to get back inside, so he managed to get in through the dining room window. He then proceeded up to the bedroom where 13-year-old Cynthia was sleeping. He went inside and he proceeded to violate her against her will. He would later say that it was consensual, but not too many people are going to believe that. According to a statement later made by James Hitchcock himself when he was first interviewed by investigators. After he had his way with Cynthia, she told him that she was injured, that she was hurt, and that she was going to go tell her mother right now what happened. Cynthia tried to get out of the bed, but Hitchcock held her down and told her that she's not going to tell her mother. Cynthia started to yell because he would not allow her to leave the bedroom. So he covered her mouth, picked her up, and carried her to an area outside the house. When he removed his hand from her mouth, she began yelling again. So he struck her twice in the head. And when that didn't work to keep her quiet, he manually strangled Cynthia with his bare hands. He then took her body into some deep bushes and left her there. After that, he went back inside the house. He showered. He washed the shirt that he was wearing. Apparently, he may have felt that it contained evidence of what he had done. And then he went to bed. Cynthia Ann Driggers' body was found later that same day, Saturday, July 31st, 1976. Now, the reports aren't clear on who exactly found the girl's body in the heavy vegetation bushes, partially clothed, according to the reports. I can only guess that the girl was reported missing when she wasn't in her bed in the morning, and investigators looked around the property and found the body. But that's just my guess. So everyone was questioned, including James Ernest Hitchcock. And investigators learned that Hitchcock had violated his parole from the state of Arkansas. Once again, I'm not sure what that was about. Maybe he was not allowed to leave the state and relocate to Florida. So Hitchcock was detained, and during questioning, he at first denied having anything to do with the death of his stepniece. But he eventually broke down and gave investigators all the details of what he had done. Basically, everything I have just described. He said that Cynthia had agreed to be intimate with him willingly, but that he then panicked when she said that she was hurt and that she was going to go tell her mother. And in a panic, he choked her, but that he didn't mean to kill her. The case first went to trial early the following year in 1977. And by this time, James Ernest Hitchcock had completely changed his story, because they always have a story. At trial, Hitchcock said that he had gone out that Friday night and returned during the early morning hours, and that his brother, Richard Hitchcock, had let him into the house. He said that his brother, Richard, then gave him permission to go up to his stepdaughter Cynthia's bedroom to go ahead and have his way with her. He said that a short time later, Richard entered the bedroom and that his brother dragged the girl to the outside of the home. James Hitchcock stated by the time he got outside to see what was going on, his brother Richard had already choked and strangled the girl to death. He said that Richard then told him that he didn't mean to kill her. James Hitchcock said that he told his brother to just go ahead and go back inside the house, that he would take care of things, and that the only thing he did was drag the girl into the bushes to help cover up his brother's crime. And that the only reason he gave a false confession when he was first questioned originally by detectives is because he was protecting his brother. James Hitchcock was found guilty and he was sentenced to death. So he's been on death row now for about 50 years. But during those 50 years, Hitchcock and his defense team had filed several successful appeals, and the case was tried 3 more times, and he was sentenced to death 3 more times. James Hitchcock turned 70 years old on April 5th of this year, 2026, making him 70 years old. 25 days after his birthday, he is set to be put to death in Florida. Please go ahead and hit the subscribe button for more death row and upcoming execution stories so that you're alerted when the next one comes out. You can also follow me on Facebook for updates. There will be a link to my Facebook in the description below. My name is Paco Rivera. Thank you for watching. Take care and bye for now.